We have some guests in the studio with us today, and I was going to say, I think it hasn't been this crowded in here since Kelly Class's last day on the air, uh, when we had wall to wall. I mean, it was people were lined up against the walls, and we had quite a party here that morning. First of all, Dr. Jonathan Tripp is joining us from Tripp Family Medicine here in Twin Falls, taking some time out with us this morning because he does this on Wednesdays. He joins us and talks about various aspects of medicine, and he's also willing to take some of your telephone calls as well. But first of all, we should point out you're listening not only to Better Health, but to News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Bill Colley with you on Top Story, and it's 8:34:53. Doctor, first of all, you've got quite a lot of guests that you brought along today for some, well, this time of year, some very important issues coming up.
I do. This morning we're going to talk about sports medicine, and so we've invited our athletic director and athletic trainer from CSI, Joel Bates and Richard Bingham, and we're going to talk about some things that they're doing to preventatively avoid injuries in their athletes, and these are some ideas that we can learn from as individuals. I particularly enjoy sports medicine. From my background, I did a lot of orthopedics training, and so this is an area that will be fun for me to talk about. And in addition to that, it's a way to highlight how we're going into the soon fall training season for high school, college level, even junior high, and how we have sports physicals that are due. And sure enough, I got to put in our plug today. We're doing from 3 to 6 p.m. Sports physicals for anybody that needs them. And the good news is we're doing it basically as a community service. It's a $25 fee. If you have insurance that allows a wellness exam, you can often use that and pay nothing. But we give back to the teams. We try to keep a record of who's been here from what team and give half of the $25 back to the teams as a fundraiser as well. So that's today from 3 to 6 p.m. at our office on 1411 Fillmore Street. You can contact us by telephone at 933-4400. That's 933-4400. But this is a walk-in today. Usually we take these on appointment, but from 3 to 6 you can walk in, and there will be two more on the next two Wednesdays. So from 3 to 6 p.m. each of those Wednesdays.
It's critical, too, I think, before anyone actually goes out. I remember being a teenager watching the TV show The White Shadow, and one of the ball players dies from an aneurysm during practice. Things like that we don't always know about, but this is why a physical is critical.
Yeah, there are medical conditions that are life-threatening that you can have a well-trained athlete and they still die on the field or in practice, and unless they've been pretty thoroughly examined, especially about heart and lung conditions, whether it's exercise-induced asthma or a condition that has to do with a inherited trait of overgrowth of the heart that is relatively easily diagnosed if it's looked for. So these are some things on as well as we're checking for general musculoskeletal problems, areas of weakness, and I think I'm going to let our athletic director tell us a lot more about what they're doing to avoid those kinds of things. This is Joel Bate.
Yeah, thank you. I think you said things can be diagnosed if they're looked for, and we had some nagging injuries going on for years, and really wanted to take a different approach. A few years ago, we sat down and talked about a model that we're currently using and tweaking, in that we wanted to redefine what a physical actually looked like. Yeah, we want to check the heart and some of the things, but I think sometimes sports physicals may not go far enough. If we can identify some things before they happen, that's really what we'd like to identify. So taking a look at any pre-existing injuries, any past injuries, if they've had ankle problems, knee problems, shoulder issues, we want to get to work on those areas before an injury actually occurs. Finding any imbalances, hamstring, quad imbalances, bicep, tricep imbalances. We want to get to work on getting that body more balanced to do the work. I think our athletes do so much repetitive motion that it causes some imbalances in what they do, and we want to get those things straightened out. And we've had a real good luck working with both physical therapy sources, more sports specific exercises, And also, I think coaches have to take a little bit different approach in starting out when, the football team goes out there that those first 3 days can't be the hardest 3 days that a kid goes through. I think we can cause a lot of damage in breaking kids down too quickly and then not allowing that recovery time coming back.
We've got more coming up just a couple of minutes after this break. I do want to point out Tripp Family Medicine today, and we're discussing sports physicals. It's 20 minutes away from 10 o'clock. 54 right now, on its way probably into the mid-80s before we're finished with the day. Wow, that's interesting music for a medical segment, isn't it?
There you go. Little banjo playing. There we go.
At the end of Bonnie and Clyde, they did need medical attention. We should point that out.
I saw that one.
Yeah. Dr. Jonathan Tripp joining us in studio as usual on Wednesday mornings for Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. And, of course, you can reach the program today at 736-0300. It is 8:44 and 54 at our studios, and the doctor has brought along a couple of guests as well today, and we're talking about sports physicals and really just some of the needs, especially with a lot of the younger people out there who may be very athletic, but you want them to remain that way for a lifetime.
Yeah, I can give you a quick example. My oldest daughter was state champion triple jump for track in her senior year, but her second half of her sophomore year and her junior year, she was pretty well out of the picture with a torn ACL injury. Now, she's very muscular, very well developed, and yet that injury took her out for the better part of when schools would be recruiting her for, even a Division One NCAA scholarship. So, you can bet my pocketbook felt that ACL tear in more ways than one. But it really crushed her emotionally for a long time because, she had what my wife joked about an Ethiopian leg because it was so lost all of its muscle mass so quickly. And the recovery of that is not quick. It's minimum of 9 months and usually closer to a year, year and a half. So preventing these injuries is a big deal. And I was talking with our athletic director here at CSI, Joel Bate, last night, and we were talking about how the emphasis is shifting away from more training or more bulking is always better, so that we're trying to shift to more sport-specific type of exercise and analyzing where we have weaknesses or imbalances. And also, a thing that changed for me in my career is the use of braces during athletic events like knee braces or ankle braces, things like that, that used to be the tradition is, oh, don't wear a brace, it'll make you weaker. And what we found is if you wear that brace during, intense activity, whether it's practice or actual games, that you avoid injury. And so I'm going to turn a little bit over to the athletic trainer. This is Richard Bingham from CSI. And just tell us a little bit more about how you're approaching that at CSI.
Well, there at CSI, we encourage bracing. We require our three major indoor sports, volleyball, men's, women's basketball, to wear braces. We've just found that they do a good job of helping to reduce the risk of injuries, especially for those who have had previous injuries. And we do that in conjunction, as we've discussed before, a lot of the exercise. We make sure that we're going in and doing the rehab on it to make sure that as they're coming in, if they have the previous injuries, that we're doing a lot of exercises and balance and strengthening, all that other stuff that we can do to help the substructure inside the body.
Because don't you have a lot of times somebody will come in and say, hey, I have a weak ankle. It's always been weak. And what they really mean is it never got fully rehabbed.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that all the time. People sprain their ankle in high school, junior high, or whatever, and they've just fought through it and they just started playing again and they've never done their true rehab for it. So we'll sit there and go through the rehab and then we give them the ankle braces and, we found that the ankle braces do a great job. They're easy. You just throw them on and they just do a good job of helping to reduce that risk of re-injury.
But do you have them wear the brace all the time?
Yep. Practice and games.
So outside of that, they're out of the brace.
Yep. Outside of that, walking around, running around, doing everything like that, we don't necessarily require them. If it's a brand new injury, we'll stick them in brace and stuff like that. But just practices and games, that's the best thing for it. And some of the other body parts we'll throw sleeves or braces on depending upon what they need. We have lots of knee sleeves that we put on athletes to help with, tightness or soreness in the knees and stuff.
And I don't think it can just be the brace alone. After practice, those kids are in the training room before they ice and before they reduce whatever swelling or anything's going on. But they're on balance boards, and they're doing some balance training where they're putting stress on that ankle and actually having to stabilize themselves, making those muscle groups stronger, retraining that ankle. And like you said, that kid that says that they've had a weak ankle that's never truly been fixed, that ankle's probably been re-injured little tiny bits at a time,
over and
many
over.
times, just because it's so unstable. And so we try to get that back to a core and then work from there.
Well, a lot of people listening may not know what a balance board is, but in a short way, it's a square piece of wood with half a ball underneath it, and you get to stand on the half a ball while it rocks. And believe me, if your ankle is not strong, and even if it is, that's a tough board to stand on. So it retrains not only the strength of the ankle, but it retrains your brain on balance relating to that ankle. So as you go through range of motion in the middle of a game, your brain already is much more in tune with what's going on with that ankle. So I just bring that up because it's more than just saying, well, lift more weights.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Richard can talk to that. I think all the literature today is talking about more sports-specific strengths that you need, and much more about balancing the body to work together so that you don't have competing muscle groups actually causing injury. Learning how to work those things together in a sports-specific way.
That's funny because you say balancing the body, and I thought, that's very osteopathic. A doctor that has a DO behind his name like I do is a doctor of osteopathic medicine. And the tenets of osteopathy talk about, mind, body, spirit, and all things in balance, and that the body takes care of itself if you give it that balance. So this just translates very easily into my training. So it's fun to hear that it's being approached more that way, at the college level.
And we came to this not from any philosophy that was dictated to us. It came to us from a frustration that we had of why are we getting so many weird injuries? And we need to take a different approach at how we're doing this. So we've been working with CPR and Julie Ellis and Right Physical Therapy in helping us assess better. They have some amazing tools and also some amazing rehab machines that actually help us with some of these issues that we find.
And getting expert help on particular injuries really goes a long way. I'm a physician and have good background in this, and yet, I go to a physical therapist frequently when I've got my own issues and say, how should I do this better? So
Yeah.
it is a team effort.
Yeah.
You got Richard, who's going to be your athletic trainer, pretty much on site all the time, and he'll have backup from others, including some. We've got some orthopedic surgeons. I think it's Dr. McKee and Dr. Mays that work.
Yeah,
Pretty
Dr. May is our
closely.
main one, yeah.
Yeah.
And those, so you have a team approach to recovering from an injury. And what we're preaching today is more importantly how to avoid the injury.
Right.
How to stay healthy along the way.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to do things up front than that behind the scenes after a kid gets hurt. It takes a long time to get them back into playing shape, and like you said, an ACL's anywhere from 9 months to a year that we found, and besides the expense.
Yeah, there's a lot of expense.
You talk about some of the modern treatments too as well. I remember a number of years ago when Donovan McNabb broke a fibula, and he was back in action in just a few weeks because they had an inflatable cast on his leg, and he was then able to walk on a treadmill underwater, so there wouldn't be any impact on the healing of the bone. Mm-hmm. So after the healing of the bone, he was back in action within 5-6 weeks. That's something I'd never heard of happening before, but obviously he came out of that. He didn't need the physical therapy because he'd been undergoing it while he was healing.
Yeah, right.
Those are impressive techniques, and I think in particular the addition of the water and the buoyancy, taking the stress off the bone, even in a non-fracture situation, is a huge help. I'm kind of lately a preacher of getting in the water because it helped me with one of my own injuries, and it reinitiated my interest in that. And well, I tell you what, if you've got a chronic tendonitis or a back problem or a shoulder problem, just getting in the pool, waiting around, maybe not even doing laps, that helps a lot. So I would say that's a good one. Let me just bring up again our sports physicals that are going on today from 3 to 6 p.m. It's at our office, Tripp Family Medicine, and we're on Fillmore Street across from the post office. You can reach us with a phone call, 933-4400. But today it's a walk-in sports physical clinic. You don't need insurance. It's a $25 fee. Half of that fee goes back to your team. We will try to keep track of everybody that comes in. We expect it to be a busy afternoon. If you have insurance, a lot of times your wellness exam will let you do this physical for free, and it actually pays me a little more, so I like that. But this is all about getting the sports physicals done for upcoming the tryouts coming up in about 2 weeks. So we have it this Wednesday and the next 2 Wednesday afternoons from 3 to 6. So we want you to go today, because if you wait for the next two, you'll be among the very last, or won't be able to actually try out.
And once you actually get that, you give them a certificate, and then that's all they have to have, right?
Yeah, it's actually the form filled out with the questions about their health history, as well as the actual physical exam that goes back to the school. So they have to have that with them. You can download that from the Idaho High School Association website and bring it with you already filled out. That would be excellent.
We had a comment earlier, and it came from somewhere here across the table about it was about, especially with women, when it comes to various their hips related to ACLs, and because the woman obviously is built differently than a man, so there are some certain things you have to look at very closely about muscle development and the like.
Richard, you want to talk on that? You did some reading recently on that.
Yeah, as you know, as you look at just girls in general, they are at a higher risk for ACL tears in most sports they play. And so it's very important to make sure you're getting a good warm up and you're making sure you're getting good strength in the legs, both the front and the back of the legs. You make sure you're getting good strength and balance in the core and in the hips, because it all goes together. And some of the stuff I've looked at recently is just how important that hip movement and balance is in everything. And if any part of the hip is out of balance, then that just translates all the way up and down the chain and puts increased risk on that ACL, or potentially up into the back or down into the ankle. So it's huge for girls to make sure that they are getting in the weight room and taking advantage of the weight room, and not just going out and powering and getting the huge muscles, but to make sure you're getting the muscles in balance as well, because that's huge. Make sure you're not out of balance, because that can lead to that increased risk of injuries.
Sounds like a very Zen concept, keeping everything in balance. So I'm trying to do that in my life right now, and it's not working real well.
There's an old Mad Magazine issue where they show a fellow who's got a big, strong fist, and he's won this competition, but the rest of his body is underdeveloped.
Yeah.
He's got this massive fist, and then he's got a tiny body that's attached to it. And I think that it's a bit of an exaggeration, but it gives you the impression that you have to have that overall. There was a Raymond Berry, when he was playing football, had one leg shorter than the other, which caused a lot of grief for him. That would be found today in a physical. They didn't recognize that until a few years after he was in the NFL. The trainer looked at him one day on the table and said, "Hey, wait a minute." Just that it took them that long to pick it out.
Wow. No, it has to have somebody that's looking, because otherwise you just say, hey, you look like you're in good shape. You need to have someone that's looking for specific strengths, and the balance issue is key. And so, my job as the physician doing the actual sports physical is primarily to make sure that when I let you go out, that you're not going to die on the field. So that's first priority. And then after that, it really is, do you have, as a young teenager, do you have scoliosis? Do you have, imbalance in the muscle structure? Do you have a weak ankle? Have you had trouble breathing when you run? So things like that are, there's a lot to it, and it's a relatively brief exam, but we need to get those done so we have safe players.
30 seconds or so to go, Doctor. Again, the exams today.
3 to 6 p.m. It's walk-in, sports physicals, bring your form with you.
And again, you'll do this 3 weeks in a row every Wednesday afternoon.
This week and the next 2.
And I want to thank you for bringing along the folks, too, from the college as well. I love the logo, by the way. I've got to get one of those hats.
Thank you.
We appreciate having them and having the association with CSI. We love having the college here in town.
Coming up next, news at 9 o'clock. And hey, speaking of CSI, we have a CSI employee in the building, Don Hall. Of course, he's here in another capacity as mayor of the city of Twin Falls. He's on his way into the studio following the news from Fox at 9 o'clock. It's 56. We have 8:59. This is Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com.